Okay, we've been having some challenges today, but I mean, we're back. So, welcome to the Real Talk Show, a show where we discuss nothing but something that really affects us as young people and the community at large. So, today we have the two big questions that we're asking. Should a young person be denied access to sexual and reproductive health services because of their age? Or should a young person should access to sexual and reproductive health services be based on age of consent? So those are the big questions that we are asking today. And remember that this discussion is part of the Consent to Access campaign, which is supported by HIVOS through the Sexual and Reproductive Health Fund. So once again, I want to say good afternoon and welcome to our Real Talk Show, a show where we discuss issues that affects us as young people and the community at large. I know you've been waiting for us for some time now, but hey, we are here, and I hope your questions are ready and you're ready to discuss this amazing topic with us. Brian.
Yes, you got it right. It's the Real Talk Show where we talk about those issues that affect us, the young people. And now today we're talking about the age of consent, age of access, and delinking this to actually young people accessing health services. So I'm your co-host. My name is Moene Brian. And Margaret, good to co-host this show with you.
It's always great to do this show with you, Brian. Thank you so much for coming through once again. And just as Brian has mentioned, today we are discussing the delinking of sexual and reproductive health rights from age of consent to sex. I mean, we've been talking about this like for some time now, and we've had just some posters talking about all these consent to access, consent to sex, consent to just it's just about young people. And obviously, you've seen a number of different faces on the screen today. I'm going to let Brian introduce them.
Thank you so much for that opportunity to introduce an amazing panel of guests. And today I have two ladies. One is Nasante Margaret Nakamba, who is a youth health advocate and researcher. And I also have Faith Banda, who happens to be a registered nurse as well as an adolescent focal point person. And this gives us a good perspective because we're going to talk about how young people, when they come to these facilities, how they are treated on a health perspective, on a healthcare provider perspective. And the other perspective, we're going to talk about a young person who has actually maybe gone to these facility to access those health services, as well as a researcher. We have that broader perspective because, I mean, she interacts with other young people when she does her research. Nasante and Faith, welcome to the Real Talk Show.
Thank you very much. I am glad to be here.
Thank you, and we are pleased to have you here. And you guys know that the Real Talk Show is inclusive, and we do not leave anyone behind. And to help us with the sign language interpretation, we have Mulenga Abraham. Mulenga, thank you so much, and please say hi to our brothers and sisters who are living with disabilities. Margaret, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brian. And I want to welcome you all to this amazing show. Yes, we've seen Faith has just dropped out, but she'll be right back. I'm glad that last week we had another guest who was called Brian. And this week we have a Margaret, which is a very good thing to me. So Margaret, you're very much welcome. At least we're twinning today. It's good that Faith is back. So I'm going to start with Faith. Looking at the topic today, we are delinking sexual and reproductive health rights from age of consent to sex. So Faith, being someone who is mostly and oftenly interacting with young people on a regular basis, would like to know how you get to handle situations where you are approached by a young person who is underage and they want to access services. How do you get to handle such situations, Faith?
Thank you so much. So policies, when policies are made, they are supposed to be respected and observed. But when it comes to health settings, we also have guidelines that guide us in whatever we do. So I would give a practical example of someone who's been attacked by the road, raped, and then comes to the clinic. It will be unprofessional for a healthcare worker to refuse to treat that patient simply because they don't have a police report. So the same applies to me. If an adolescent comes and opens up to me, tells me to say, Madam, I had unprotected sex, how are you going to help me? To be very unprofessional of me to look at the age of that child and not offer them the services that they are supposed to get from the facility. So, with policies, we're not saying we're not respecting the policies, but we work with the policies. But an emergency is an emergency, and the benefit always, uh, and, what do I want to say? The benefit always outweighs the risks. So we'll definitely provide those services to the young people. My submission.
Great. Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Faith. I think you've mentioned about, I love the fact how you've brought it on the ground that even people like us can understand. The example that you used that if one was involved in a road accident, you would still provide the health services without a police report. And to the young people, what you're doing, I think this is also amazing and helping us, the young people. Margaret, what do you think about these policies that guide healthcare providers, as well as some of those weavers, I would say, for lack of better terms, that allows them to provide these health services to young people, even when they're not really of age?
So when we look at the policies, Brian, we're going to find that we have policies that really restrict young people from accessing these services, especially when a young person is maybe 15 or 16. This young person can't, let me say 15 or 14, this young person cannot access this sexual reproductive health the health facility due to their age and due to policy, like the age of consent itself. But then of things you're also going to find that these are young people who are sexually active. Like this is a young person who is 14 years, 15 years. This person is sexually active. They are trying to get the provided services from the health facilities, but they cannot do that due to what? To restrictions. So it's a battle, I should say. It's a battle, and this is now where we're going to find that a number of young people are going to find themselves in situations where they can't really do anything, but because they're sexually active and they can't do anything, this is now where teenage pregnancies come in. This is where young people are infected. This is where young people are now resorting to using unsafe practices. I mean, this is a young person who wants services from a health facility, but because of their age, they cannot really access the services. And at the end of the day, we're going to find that we're doing things that we're not supposed to do as young people. So that's really my take on that, Brian. I don't know what you think. Faith,
Yeah,
can
I
you
think
still
equally,
hear?
I think
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Margaret, the way you've brought it, I think even me, I would also love to think the same. But again, when it comes to young people accessing these health services, especially those that are below 16, they come with their own challenges. And Faith, having mentioned that sometimes you do allow young people to access these health services. So what are some of the challenges that you as a healthcare provider face when it comes to attending or rather providing the health services to young people, especially those that are under the age of 16?
Okay. So challenges that we encounter as health facilities are discrimination and stigma from the community, especially parents and church leaders. Well, we are looked or rather labeled in communities that we are the ones who are encouraging the young people to do whatever they are doing. But my message is, Brian, if someone comes to the facility or just ask you a question from home, if a child asks for water at home, you would know that definitely this child is thirsty. So the same applies. If a young person comes to the facility to, for instance, ask for family planning, just know that that young person is sexually engaging. Because if a child is practicing abstinence, believe me, they can't even think of coming to the clinic to ask for family planning. So if a young person asks for family planning, just know that they are sex engaging. So if you deny them that service, believe me, they'll go and have unwanted pregnancy. In the wanted pregnancy, knowing very well that your facility is not friendly to young persons, when they become pregnant, they won't come to you. Instead, they'll go again to grandmothers in the communities to help them terminate that pregnancy. So us, at the end of the day, will receive a lot of bleeding, abortions leading to death, maternal deaths will increase. So if a young person asks for any service at the facility, some come even in uniforms. We don't look at their age. What we are interested in is what the person wants. So we'll gladly offer that service. But policies are there which govern us to protect our interests as well as the same young persons. But if someone comes for a service, Brian, if you are in our shoes, how can you go about it?
Yeah, so I think even if it were me, because the question that I've always had is if young people don't ask for permission to go and have sex from their parents, why should they have? Why should they need their parents when it comes to accessing these health services? I mean, I don't ask for you to have sex, but why should I ask you to escort me to access these health services? You mentioned about the issue of the community stigma and maybe sometimes saying you, the healthcare providers, are the ones that are encouraging these bad vices by the young people. And I think, Margaret, you and I are the community. And I think to change the narrative in our communities, what do you think, Margaret, we should do in order to also at least maybe the community should take ownership in allowing or rather encouraging young people to access these health services?
That's interesting. Faith mentioned to say in the community they are labeled as the people are encouraging young people to be indulging themselves into these sexual activities. But then I feel like if we were to change the narrative here, especially looking at the community, we need to change the mindset of the community, the mindset of the parents, the guardians, whoever is a community member. Because trust me, these young people that you're talking about, they come from communities, different communities for that matter. Communities that are sometimes supporting them, communities that are not supporting them at the end of the day. So now this is now something that we have to take upon us. And I would say this goes directly to, let's say, the parents. Brian, you've mentioned to say we as young people, when we're about to indulge in sexual activities, we don't get permission from our parents. So why is it that when it comes to accessing these services, we should get permission from our parents, which is something that we can't really maybe we do. So now it has to go to the community. The parents should know, the guardians or the community members, they should know how important it is for a young person to be able to access these services. Faith mentioned to say if a young person goes to the health facility to go and access these services, it means there's something that they are doing and something they would like to protect themselves against, of which our health practitioners, our health providers, they've been labeled a certain way, in the sense that they are labeled to say they're the ones encouraging young people to, you know, to be indulging in such activities, but then they don't really understand to say these are the people that are helping young people when it comes to protecting themselves and just being able to use certain measures that are going to to take them away from harm. So I think it's just the mindset at the end of the day, Brian.
Yeah, yeah, I think you are right. For us to change this, it takes you, Margaret, me, our viewers, Asante, Grace, and everyone, so that we make the community, or rather, we educate the community on the importance of these young people accessing sexual reproductive health services. And talking about young people, I would love to hear from you, Asante. What is the reality of young people trying to access sexual reproductive health services today?
The reality of young people trying to access sexual reproductive health services today is different per province, and it's different when it comes to urban, peri-urban, and rural. So there are some young people that might be privileged to access particular services because of the information that they have been able to access. And majority of the young people today are able to access particular sexual reproductive health services that they would want, because maybe there is no choice, maybe it is how far the facility is, maybe that the space is not adolescent friendly or youth person friendly, and also it does not incorporate persons with disability as well. So it is not the same throughout, but for young people with who are able to be in different organizations, such as I am, or who are able to become a peer educator, they have more information, and they probably will be in the best place to access services when it comes to sexual reproductive health and rights. Though that's not the front for every young person in the country.
So yeah, thank you so much. And you mentioned of the difference in the province, but do you think there is that much difference when it comes to our perspective here in Zambia, and you being a regional researcher, and I believe you've interacted with young people in these different countries across Southern Africa. Do you think these challenges that we as Zambia face when with regards to sexual reproductive health services and age of consent are similar or are quite different?
From my interactions with other young people and from moving to different parts of the country, I think the conversation is the same, because we are constantly speaking about the same things, that we are
Brian, are you able to get her?
No, it seems her network
move
have
forward because
failed her. Yeah.
You can go
are you
ahead.
able to get me?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can
yes, you
get you
can go
now.
ahead.
Okay. With other places in the region, you can see that they have progressively moved forward. But for Zambia, we have progressive policies, but the attitude towards young people when it comes to sexual reproductive health and rights continues to be a challenge. And I think also in different countries like Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, Mozambique, but I know that South Africa, Botswana have progressed not just in policy, but they have also progressed when it comes to sexual reproductive health and rights services that young people are able to acquire in certain parts, again, of their countries, but not as a round picture all around. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Asante. And I love the fact that you've mentioned to say, even in those countries that are doing well with regards to young people accessing these sexual reproductive health services, you've mentioned also having those other challenges. And I think moving forward, we also need to, especially for me, really, I stand more on the community taking ownership, because when the community takes ownership of encouraging these young people, knowing the importance of young people accessing these health services, then that speaks to sustainability. Come 10 years from now, that culture is going to continue, and young people, even in 10 years from now, young people will be able to access these health services. Margaret, what do you think about this.
Yeah. So, talking about culture, Brian, you've mentioned to say culture and the community at large, they get to affect us in terms of just helping young people to access the services. So, I'm just going to go back a little bit to Nasante. So, Nasante, what happens, or how does the community attitude and culture beliefs affect young people's decision when it comes to seeking these health services that we're talking about today?
Culture and attitudes or beliefs continues to be a barrier, in that we are taught of certain things. In the olden days, we heard of stories where you would have aunties and grandmothers that would talk to you about your body autonomy, but not necessarily sexual reproductive health and rights. And just here in Zambia, we know that comprehensive sexuality education was changed from comprehensive sexuality education to life skills health education because of the term sexuality. So right there, it's able to tell you that culture continues to be a barrier, and also it is able to influence. And it's high time that even in our different communities, we are able to get key players that will be able to influence the correct conversation when it comes to sexual reproductive health and rights in our different communities. Are you able to get me? Okay. And so there are different myths and misconceptions that come from culture and beliefs as well. And because we are unable to debunk some of them, they continue to be a barrier to accessing certain services, as well as when you talk about child marriage in the different communities, we have children getting married at a very young age. And so they need to be able to have the right information, have the right service given to them. But because of culture, they are unable to get that particular service that they need to get, because probably their aunties or their uncles or their parents will be unable to influence those decisions. So young people are then making decisions from not a well-informed point of view, but in an urgency for them to be able to protect themselves from certain diseases that they might get due to them not getting sexual reproductive health and rights services. Or the other thing is that in our generation, the conversation has changed because we have young people as young as 9 that are sexually active. And so there is a need for us to be able to delink SRHR and access consent access to sex for young people because of that. So we have young people that are selling themselves so that they're able to get even the basic needs that they need. For example, we have heard of stories of young people who are 10, 11, that are living by the border side, that are engaging in sexual activities because they need basic things like pads. And mostly the affected or marginalized continues to be adolescent girls and young women, not forgetting the boys, but we'll just say that these are the ones that are more at high risk. And so we need to make sure that the attitudes are able to change, and we bring in older people into the conversation, because for a long time we have been leaving them by the sidelines. So we need our parents in the conversation, we need our aunties and uncles into the conversation, we need key players like traditional leaders, religious leaders into the conversation, and any other person that we know is a key champion to influencing consent to access for services for SRHR for adolescents and young people.
Great. Yeah, that's really interesting, Asante, and especially when we talk about me. I'll always stand on the community because these are young people that are coming from the community. I mean, these are young people who are coming from communities going to sell just for them to have a little money to sustain themselves with these basic needs that we need as young as girls, I should say. So now, when we talk of the community and the community leaders, the parents, the guardians, and whatnot, do you think there's a gap in terms of the information that they need when it comes to just maybe being in a space where they can allow young people to access these services after maybe noticing that their child is sexually active? Because some of them, quite all right, they know that their children are sexually active, but they just can't gate up or encourage their child to go and access these SRH services that are being offered. So do you think there's a gap in information, or they have information on that? And if there's a gap, what is it that we can do to just bridge the gap and ensure that young people are helped in that way?
I think there is a gap, and for some that would feel or think there is no gap is because we would call them elites, and probably they have been in these spaces. But also, those that have been in the spaces we're in do not really influence their young people or adolescents that are in their reach to be able to access sexual reproductive health and rights services. So the information gap is really big, because I think there was a meeting that I was in, and these are people that have heard this conversation for a long time, and they continued to say, we cannot allow you to be in our spaces to talk about sexual reproductive health and rights services, because then you're encouraging young people to have sex. But I feel like there is need for them to have this information so that they're able to give it to the young people. Because if we have conversations and honest conversations between adults and young people, it creates a space where a young person is even able to speak to their elders, speak to their parents about what they're going through. But because of the information gap, and mostly is because even when we go into these communities, we are going to target young people and we are not going to target the older people. So our programming is for adolescents and young people, but where are the older people that need this information? Because they're coming from a generation that was totally different from a generation that we are in right now, and they might not know the lived reality that young people are facing now. And so it's important that even as we are programming and creating interventions that are then implemented in these communities, we're able to engage the parents, we're able to engage community leaders, we're able to engage religious leaders, and any key champion that you think can have influence in making sure that there is that that gap is curbed, and the information is then sent to young people, and also helps young people to access sexual reproductive health and rights services, especially those that are indulging in sexual activities. How then can they protect themselves? How then can they be able to make better decisions or choices about their sexual activities? How then can we also delay sexual debut? It's another conversation that we need to have within our communities and within the key stakeholders or key players in making sure that sexual reproductive health and rights access is sort of implemented to a target that would want to see it reach.
Great. Thank you so much for that explanation, Asante. We haven't forgotten about our online community. I know we're just speaking to Nasante right now, and you can just hear the points that are coming out of Nasante. But hey, we are looking at the delinking of sexual and reproductive health rights from the age of consent to sex. That's the topic that we're discussing today. Where are you watching us from? So we're going to read some of the comments that we have on Facebook, and just ensure that our audience is also engaging. And if you perhaps have any questions that you'd like to ask Nasante, Brian, or myself, you can do that. So I have a comment from Abigail Mwenda here, and it says, I feel also engaging community leaders, people like traditional leaders, religious leaders, teachers, when respected voices support health providers, the community is more likely to change its mindset. Equip them with the correct information so they can become advocates, not critics. Thank you so very much, our advocate, our very own advocate, Abigail. Thank you for that. We also have another one from Rogers, and it says, I concur with you, madam. Other causes include stigma from health workers. Young people are seen to lack morals if they seek sexual reproductive health services. True. Culture is also another factor. Sex issues have deeply been demonized in our society. This makes young people to have information gaps in the way they handle SRH. Then three, lack of information. Health education in schools and health centers. Young people do not know where to access the services. Thank you so much for these comments that you are bringing in. You can still bring in your comments, and we also have another one by Karen. Karen is our usual, like she's always commenting and just tuning in. Thank you so much, Karen. So Karen says sometimes self stigma contributes to young people not accessing certain services. If we were to work on this in the near future, we won't have issues to deal with teen pregnancies. Thank you so much for that text, for that comment, Karen. Rogers is back and is saying stigma from particular health workers and the society. We needed Faith to be here so that she can defend herself when it comes to these comments that we're getting on our health providers. And then Abigail is back and she's saying communication gaps, sometimes health messages are not delivered in a way the community understands or relates to, especially if they are too technical or in local languages. Misinformation versus accurate knowledge may many community members don't fully understand services like PrEP or youth-friendly healthcare. This creates fear and assumptions like labeling providers negatively, and because people are filling the gaps with myths and instead of facts. Yes, that's very true. That's why I was saying Faith needed to be here so that maybe she can just defend herself on the aspect of health providers, because hey, we are fond of pointing fingers at the health provider, especially when it comes to young people accessing these services. And it's very true again, Brian, where we need certain information to be
Mhm.
at least translated in certain languages so that a number of people are able to
Yes.
understand. You know, there are people like who cannot read English, but they can read other languages. So in as much
Mhm.
as information is being provided, I feel like it's very
Mhm.
important that we just, we consider the other languages as well.
Yeah, yes, Margaret. I think for me, really, it's not necessarily only the information, but also, I mean, even policies need to be at least broken down to the level where if an average health worker can understand. Because in these policies, Margaret, when you read them, you find all these big law terms that sometimes may be difficult to understand. So if we package them in such a way that an average Zambian can understand, an average African can understand, I think that also can bridge a gap between the information. I think also on the information, it is what is also affecting our communities is the misinformation. So having the information
Mm,
is another thing, and having the correct information is another thing. So others have the wrong information and take it as gospel truth, and that is also affecting our communities because I mean there are a lot of misconceptions around sexual reproductive health and rights. And I love how Abigail brought it to the ground to say even the church should take part in advocating for young people accessing these health services. If you look at our
mm,
setup, the way these churches have so much influence, our papas, our bishops, our reverend priests. So I think these have got a lot of influence, such that if they say this is forbidden, people will follow. So if we use them as a channel of providing this information to young people, information about sexual reproductive health and rights, I think information will reach a lot of people and a lot of parents, a lot of young people, and you'll see that even the gap between our generations will be at least bridged. So I think uh, great submissions from our comment session. I also heard from Karen. Karen mentioned about self stigma. Margaret, I think that
mm.
is also one of the major problem affecting us, the young
Yeah,
people. Sometimes we don't know that we are supposed to access these services, these health services. You see, even just abortion itself, you find that young people don't know that they can access uh, safe abortion
and
and care
free.
Yes, at these health facilities, they don't know that information. So if this information can be given to them in these channels, one of the ways that can be to the young people. And I think for me, Margaret, that is what I think. Maybe you have anything else that you'd love to add on our comments and to our audience.
Yeah, I think that's very important, Brian. I'm glad that our online community today is participating, and they're raising important points that we really need to pay attention to, especially the fact that we've looked at being in a space where young people are stigmatized, being a space where we need leaders, community leaders, to be able to help us in terms of just spreading information. I like what you said when you said when community leaders, when these papas and other people, when they talk, people listen. So I feel like it would be a very strong drive to use these same people in our communities, the leaders, the church leaders, and others, to just even spread information to these parents. Because at times you'd find that a young person wants to access services, but because home, if mom finds out that I'm accessing these services, it's not going to be things. We're not going to be in good terms. But then if a community leader, let's say a chief or any traditional leader says to say, okay, if you have a child who's sexually active and they want to access these services, please, you can let them access, but of course with the correct and accurate information. And where can you get this information? You can get it from the health facility. That's where we can get it from. So thank you so much. The comments that we're getting from our online community, you are doing so good, and we really appreciate it. We have more comments, Brian. You can go ahead and respond to them.
So Caristo says cultural beliefs is also a gap in accessing health services. Margaret, I think this is what we are from talking about, to say these cultural beliefs. I think Asante did mention about them, and yeah, we have another comment from Abigail. Abigail says, so I feel if we can use media and content for young people, short videos explaining prep, simply myth versus facts posts, community voices speaking out, share real stories, use trusted voices, people listen more to those they already trust, work with community leaders, church leaders, parents, and peer educators. Let them help explain services like trust. It can curve the gap that we are having. Thank you so much, Abigail. This is actually very, very true. If you look at where young people are found, where they are found, churches and social media, this space. So if this can be used as a tool to give out the information, I think information can reach a lot of young people. She also mentioned about content. So we are seeing a lot of trending content and a lot of views, millions of views. So imagine if that content is not only about these activities that are not helping the young people. I think if we connect social media, content creation to providing the right information, I think we can at least do good to the young people when it comes to bridging the gap between having information and not having information. I think that can also be helpful. Asante, welcome back. We were just going through our comment section, and our online community is very, very active, and we have a lot of comments. And one comment that I kept for you is experiencing self-stigma. So them, they are saying it's not actually the stigma that comes outside. Sometimes it's us, the young people, that don't know that we're supposed to access these health services in a proper manner. What do you think about that?
I'm kindly asking if you can repeat it again. Repeat the comment.
Yes, so the comment is Karen mentioned to say sometimes young people is not necessarily the stigma that comes from outside. Sometimes it's the self-stigma. Young people don't know that they're supposed to access these health services in a proper manner. And I would love to hear from you what you have to say about young people having self-stigma when it comes to accessing sexual reproductive health services.
For a long time, we have been like conversations that have to just do with our bodies, body autonomy, or just when it comes to access to particular services, we know that we are supposed to go with someone who's older than us to the hospital. So when we go to the hospital and we have no one who's older than us, we think, oh, we cannot access particular services because we have no one escorting us. And then also when it comes to beliefs and cultural attitudes just within ourselves, there are particular things that our faith beliefs or cultural beliefs do not align to when it comes to sexual reproductive health and rights. So we would feel that us going to access these services at an adolescent-friendly space or a facility will then be able to say what we are experiencing, or probably be able to us visiting a facility will then make us look like we're promiscuous. And one thing, especially for young people, is that you do not want to look promiscuous. You want to look like you're well put together. But then there are certain things that you are doing behind, the skeleton. So it's important for us to know that our health matters and our well-being matters. And us not getting the correct services or not being well informed does not help us in any way. And therefore, it's important that we go to these particular spaces for us to get the correct information. And when you feel like you haven't gotten the correct information, there are different platforms, digital platforms that are coming up that you can use that will be able to, and this is one of them, like the Real Talk Show is one of them, where you can get adequate information when it comes to sexual reproductive health and rights. But self-stigma or self-isolation is correct. And we have what is known as imposter syndrome, and it's just correct. It's part of who we are. But it's high time as young people that we know that when we get particular information, we get educated. By us getting educated, we're able to make better choices. And so it's conversations that we need to be having with our peers regularly. And it's also conversations that we should be having with those that we know can be able to help us to then make better choices when it comes to our health and our bodies as well. So I think it's just from upbringing, like from when you are a baby, that you are taught of certain things. And when you are out of context, you will then think or feel like you cannot go and access particular services because you'll be shamed, you'll be shunned, or you will be sent back. So you would rather just stay back than going to a health facility to access these services, or maybe just going to an adolescent-friendly space, or maybe a youth hub that will be able to give you that information that you need.
Great. Thank you so much. The network is collapsing today. I don't know if it's aware that it's a holiday and that's why it keeps giving us this. But thank you so much for those points, Nasante. And looking at time, we're running out of time and we need to wind up. So I'm still going to get back to you, Nasante. So we've spoken on a number of things, like certain things that we go through as young people, especially when it comes to just trying to access these services, the sexual and reproductive health services from the health facilities, and just from the health facilities to the community, the confusion which is there, the community, the health practitioners and whatnot. So in terms of trying to delink SRHR from age of consent to sex, what is it, Nasante, if you as a young person, you as a young person representing other young people out there, if you were to change something or one thing about how these services are provided in our health facilities, how would that be? This is Asante, this is a chance where you have to give us that manifesto, you know. This is now where you're supposed now to tell us what Nasante can do. Who knows? Maybe we can vote for you as a youth representative. Yes,
So it's a political thing now. The first thing that I would say is the understanding that sexual reproductive health and rights is a fundamental human right. And so based on that, we should be able then to give services according to capacity and maturity, because then young people will be able, you are able to tell that this young person has matured a certain way or has a particular capacity, and then be able to give them the service that they need. But away from that, we need not an adolescent-friendly space, because we have been speaking about this for years. We need an adolescent-friendly health system that then is able to use what they have learned, like in the medical field, in their health sciences, that this young person has this particular capacity, they are matured like this, and then consent to access, like the legal age of consent to access, might not work on this one because of at a particular high risk that they are at. And so we just need to give them the service. And so the system needs to then understand that particular young people need to be given particular services, and it shouldn't be just, okay, let me mention a few, like for example, contraceptives, HIV testing and counseling, as well as just maybe family planning for some. Family planning is the same as contraceptive, but it differs when it comes to research, that they should be able to be given because they are living in high-risk areas. And so if it's a health system, it's not just a corner. If it's a health system, it's not just a place. And when we look at our landscape in Zambia, we have very few that are really working to the point that we say, oh, we have better services for adolescents and young people. According to the statistics that have been given under the ZDHS 2024, we still have a lot of challenges. So I think a health system is then able to help us rather than having an adolescent-friendly space, because then we have people that are educated. We have nurses that are educated as it's part of their course, doctors as well. We have different medics that have been educated about adolescent health and their social behavioral change, and also their capacity as well. So if it's a system, it works better overall than just having an adolescent-friendly space. That would then be changed according to the donor that comes. It becomes their container rather than being the space that young people are able to get services. So yeah, an adolescent health-friendly system, not a space or a corner.
Great. I think that is, Margaret, you've heard. She's spoken very well if she was in that position, what she's going to do. And I think that is very, very important. An adolescent friendly system, not a space. I think that also speaks to sustainability. She mentioned about other people coming in. It could be donors. I think they would also just ride on what already exists, the system that already creates that environment for young people to be able to access these health services freely. And she mentioned of health workers. A lot of comments coming from the young people are saying health workers sometimes are not friendly, but if they are taught in these training institutions to say, if you are a doctor and a young person comes to the facility to access health services, this is how you measure their level of maturity, and also be able to provide these health services at a level that they are able to understand, and at a level where they are going to make a decision for themselves. I think that is also very, very important when it comes to providing an environment, or rather a space where young people can access these health services. It shouldn't just be at that particular corner, but it has to be the whole system, and that calls for a greater change in maybe sometimes some of these policies, and also just our attitude towards young people accessing these health services. I think that is what I have to say. Margaret, what do you have to say?
yeah. Looking at time, it just seems like time is not really on our side, but then we have to go. I mean, it's a holiday, we have to go. But then one thing I would like to say again is we as young people should not just put it on health providers or maybe the community. and puts that as an excuse of us not really accessing these services. Quite all right, some of us are aware that these services are there in health facilities and they are free, but then we just choose not to access them. So let us not blame others. Let us not blame the health providers. Let us not blame the community, our parents, because they don't allow us and whatnot. If you are a young person, if you're an advocate, whoever is watching, you're a young person, a community facilitator, a peer educator, and you have information on how young people, your fellow young people, can access information on sexual reproductive health and services, you can also do a very great job by reaching out and just giving them the accurate and just helping them in terms of going to the health facility to access the services. Let us not blame others, but let us also put it on ourselves as young people. Let us not use the wrong information. Let us stick to right information as we seek these sexual reproductive health services. Time is not really with us. I mean, so I would like to appreciate our guest, Nasante, even though our internet today has been collapsing, but at least we've managed to bring to you the Real Talk Show. Nasante, we just want to say thank you so much for coming through and for the points that you've given us today. We are going to go with them, and obviously we can't wait to have you again on the show just to discuss these important issues that affect us as young people and the community. We appreciate you, and we also want to thank our online community. You've been so great today. You've been so amazing. You've given us pointers. You've asked questions, and it's just so important that you are following the Real Talk Show. And I would like to thank Brian, of course, for coming through and just helping us in just breaking down this important topic that we had. And of course, we didn't forget about our other friends out there who are unable to get what we're saying, but of course with the help of Mulenga, they've been able to follow the show and just get one or two things from here. Nasante, thank you again. If you have any other last words, I'm giving you seconds. If you have any other last words that you can say to the young people before we close, please, you can go ahead. Is Nasanta still there? Brian, are you still there? Okay, so it seems like Nasanta is no longer with us. She has dropped off. Probably her internet has dropped her. But anyways, it's a goodbye from now. And see you all next week. Same time, same place. Bye-bye. See you.